So I came across this article in the Washington Post. The weather helps disprove the flat Earth hypothesis. And basically this article is just ridiculous. So it starts off in the normal way by ridiculing the flat Earth theory. The Earth is round, it says here. Their science is laughable, their evidence baseless, and their claims prone to falling flat. Ho, 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 pun intended. So just the usual ridiculing, as they do. So let's examine this, their theories here in this article. Because of the way gravity works, now it doesn't even say what type of gravity they mean in here. So whether they're talking Newtonian or Einsteinian gravity. I mean, are they talking about mass attracts mass here or the bending of space-time? Not sure. Doesn't really explain what type of gravity they mean. So which we all encounter. Every molecule of air would be drawn to the Earth's centre of mass. Oh, so I think they're talking sort of Newtonian, which was debunked by Einstein. So anyway, because the Earth is a globe, this means the atmosphere settles around Earth, pulled towards Earth's centre. Does it now? So we have gas pressure, do we? We do, obviously, but we have it because of gravity? Or is it because we have a container? Stopped by the Earth's surface. So then it goes on to say, if the Earth were flat, a large chunk of the air would be drawn towards the centre of the disk that flat earthers believe in. Air pressure would range from near zero or no atmosphere at the edge to massive values towards the middle, so like the North Pole. I don't think they quite understand our model, really, do they? I don't think they want to either. So rather, I would say, if the Earth was a spinning ball with no roof, no container, we would actually have no air pressure because of the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. The air pressure would all spread out into the vacuum of space. The very fact that we have air pressure at all means that we do have a container of some sort, made necessary by the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. So I've heard it said it's like if you have a tyre with tyre pressure in it, you're inflating a tyre so that it's pressurised. Could you inflate that tyre so that it has pressure without the tyre being there? No, you couldn't, because the pressurised air would spread out into the rest of the atmosphere. So likewise, if we didn't have a container, our atmosphere would spread out into the vacuum of space. So their logic is wrong here. So rain and hail would fall sideways and you might drown. I don't know how they work that out. I'd love to see. On a flat Earth, the pull of gravity. See, again, they're not even explaining what type of gravity. Are they talking bendy space-time here? So this just doesn't make any sense. At the pole and close to it, all that precipitation in the air would converge and eventually pile up. Why? I don't understand their logic. I mean, we believe, or most of us flat earthers believe, that gravity is just a downward bias, possibly by the electrostatic charge of the Earth. So that establishes a down, and then density and buoyancy, they determine which things fall down and which things fall up. Like helium is less dense than air, so it falls upwards, and say a pebble is more dense than air, so it falls downwards. So the downward bias is determined by the electrostatic charge of the Earth, and then we have density and buoyancy determining the order in which things lay on the Earth. So that's what most of us actually believe, us flat earthers. So they clearly don't understand our model of gravity, but I don't think this guy has done any research at all. So it goes on to say here, through that same process, a rocket launched into the air would eventually find itself returning towards the North Pole rather than the Earth's surface. So if they launch a rocket there, it ends up in the sea, doesn't it? In the Bermuda Triangle, normally. The sun would never set. Well, they've got here our model. And it's true that the sun doesn't actually set in the flat Earth model. It just goes out of sight because it's much smaller and closer, more local than in the heliocentric model. The sun is not 93 million miles away. It's probably only about 3,000 or so miles away, although it's an apparent position. We don't know exactly how far away it is. But clearly it is not 93 million miles away, and it's not massive, 50 times the size of the Earth. It's just ridiculous. If it was absolutely huge, as in the heliocentric model, then whatever side of the Earth the sun is shining on, it should all be exactly the same temperature if it's that far away, but clearly it's not. So clearly where the sun is, so it is smaller and more local, as in this model that you can see here, than where the bit that it's hovering over. So you can see here it's going around the equator. That's actually the hottest part. And the cooler bits towards the centre, so towards the North Pole and towards the South Pole at the outer rim here, they're the cooler parts. So that actually makes a lot more sense in our geocentric flat Earth model than it does in the heliocentric model. So if the sun was shining on one half of the Earth in the heliocentric model, then it should, in theory, be all the same temperature because the sun is really that far away. So it's travelling, the heat and light of the sun is travelling all that distance to start with. So what difference would a few extra 1,000 miles make if the sun heat is already travelling 93 million miles? So again, it makes much more sense in our flat Earth model, the heat from the sun. Have you ever experienced nighttime? Yes, then you've witnessed proof that the Earth isn't flat. Well, as you can see here, our model where the sun is much closer and smaller, it is only lighting up a portion of the Earth at a time, like a torch. If you take a torch and shine it in the middle of a room, down onto the table or down onto the floor, it's not going to light up the entire room, the torch. It will just light up a particular spot. So why they say, have you ever experienced nighttime? And you've witnessed proof that the Earth isn't flat. That is clearly not the case, as shown in this diagram above that they've helpfully included for people. Flat earthers say the sun is 32 miles wide. No, we don't. We don't actually know how large the sun is, or even if it is a physical object. What we can say, though, is that it is not 93 million miles away and about 50 times the size of the Earth. If it was the case, it would never set. Of course it would. It would just go out of sight. So it doesn't actually set. So it doesn't move downwards, or the Earth doesn't move around. What the sun does, it travels around to the other side, as we know. So what rubbish. Look at this. All would freeze or burn. We would freeze or burn. Again, same stupid logic here. Okay. Human life wouldn't exist. Well, clearly it does. We do live on a flat Earth because water doesn't bend, and 70% of the Earth is made of water. And we also don't have any curvature. So clearly we do live on a flat Earth, and clearly human life does exist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here reading this article. So again, silly logic there. Lunar eclipses, well, no. So the moon plunged into a blood red hue during a total lunar eclipse. An alternative explanation. Well, we do. Is that a shadow? Okay, so our hypothesis is that a shadow object orbiting the sun enters a lineup between the sun and the moon. Well, it's clearly not the Earth, because the Earth, in a was it Selenelian eclipse, it comes in from the wrong angle. The Earth, the shadow of the so-called Earth, comes in from the top instead of from the bottom, as you would expect. So clearly it's not the Earth getting in the middle. Also, the shadow that the moon makes during a solar eclipse is only about 30 miles wide. And that would not be possible if the moon was much larger than about 30 miles, because a shadow cannot be smaller than the object which is creating it, which is casting it. So considering in a solar eclipse that the moon makes a shadow of about 30 miles across, then we can conclude that the moon is no larger than 30 miles across, really. No shadow makes no object casts a shadow which is smaller than itself. It's always the same size or larger. So, again, this article, jet stream, forget about it. So this is the jet stream on the heliocentric model, and you can see it is bendy. But in the flat Earth model, so if you look at the jet stream on the AE map, you'll see it actually goes clearly around just in a circle. It doesn't go in this bendy pattern. That's only on their ball model. And in fact, the jet streams make much more sense, and they run a lot more smoothly, just round in a circle on the azimuthal equidistant map, which is the most commonly accepted flat Earth map, like the UN logo, that sort of map, which they've removed from, I think it was the nullschool.earth website, or earth.nullschool. They've removed that A projection from there, showing the jet streams on the flat Earth model, because it's just too telling, really. So Coriolis force, again, more in this article. In the Northern Hemisphere, the Coriolis force, well, for a start, it's not a force, it's just an effect. It says it deflects air parcels to the right. South of the equator, it's to the left. But that is, it's a bit like the heliocentrists. They're having their cake and eating it. Either the atmosphere is welded to the Earth or it isn't. So they like to say in one breath that the atmosphere is welded to the Earth, which is why we don't experience 1,000 miles per hour winds at the equator, which we would do if the atmosphere wasn't welded. But then they also say that we have this Coriolis force, which they say here, which is wrong. It's actually an effect anyway, and it doesn't happen. If you go up in a hot air balloon or a helicopter, or if you're skydiving, for example, the Earth does not rotate underneath you. In a hot air balloon, you can't physically go up in a balloon and then see the Earth rotating underneath you, as you would expect to if there was a Coriolis effect, so if the Earth was spinning. So again, Coriolis has been completely debunked. especially with tools such as that Foucault pendulum. So that's just ridiculous, the Foucault pendulum, because it's the frame of reference is the same as the Earth. The stand that the pendulum is stood on is attached to the Earth. So it should spin along with the Earth because it's attached to the Earth. The stand holding up the pendulum, it's not independent of the Earth. So they have motors anyway. It's just ridiculous how they try to prove this Coriolis, which again, they're contradicting themselves even by saying that we have one, because in the first instance, they say the atmosphere is welded to the Earth, which is why on a calm day, smoke from chimneys, it rises straight upwards, which clearly it couldn't do if the Earth was spinning and the atmosphere wasn't attached to it. So how does smoke rise straight upwards if there is a Coriolis effect? Surely it should go, at an angle all the time, which it doesn't. That's just ridiculous. There would be no hurricanes on a flat Earth. But again, same ridiculous logic. Clearly there are hurricanes, so they do work on a flat Earth model because we live on a flat Earth and we have them. Aurora australis would have some issues. So again, that's caused by electromagnetism. And with the South Pole, it's like a ring magnet. It goes all the way around the south. So Antarctica, we believe, is the edge of our known world. Like a ring, it goes all the way around the outside of the flat Earth model. Let me show you. So, yeah, here we are. So this is Antarctica. So this whole bit here is the South Pole, and this is the North Pole. So why wouldn't it work? It should do. It's just like a ring magnet in your speaker. There's no reason why it wouldn't work, and it does. The Earth's magnetic field results from its spinning. Well, clearly it doesn't, because we're not spinning. So, and even that premise is ridiculous. So they say we have a superheated core largely comprised of iron, which is magnetic. And again, that is false, because iron, when molten, it actually loses its magnetism. So as you heat up iron, it gradually loses its magnetism until it comes to the Curie point, in which all magnetism is completely gone. So when it's molten, there is no iron that is actually still magnetic. So their theory about a molten magnetic core, it doesn't exist within nature, and we can prove that molten iron is not magnetic. So that spinning mass is what generates Earth's protective magnetic field. Clearly it isn't, because we're not spinning, and molten iron is not magnetic in any way. It loses its magnetism as it's heated. Magnets have a north and a south pole. Well, so do we. We have a north pole in the middle, and our south pole is all the way around the edge perimeter. Flat earthers can't explain. Well, I just did explain it. It's like the ring magnet in your speaker. Ocean currents would be screwy. Again, that's similar to the jet stream currents. Again, on a flat Earth model, like on the AE map, they go round in pretty much in a circle. So they look much more sensical on the AE map than they do on a ball, in which they're just all wavy. They go around everywhere, all the ocean currents. They look a lot more neat and tidy on our flat Earth model. So there, this article again is just completely ridiculous. Obviously, the person that wrote it, who is the person that wrote it anyway? Should we look him up and see who he is? Capital Weather Gang. Has anyone actually put their name to this article? Matthew Capucci. Shall we have a look and see who he is? Let's have a look. Matthew Capucci. Bio, come on. Meteorologist, capital weather gang, Harvard University, and he doesn't even know that molten iron is not magnetic. Whatever. Read more. Who is he? Well, obviously he's a disinformation agent. The thing is, these people have to ridicule flat Earth because it is the first stage of truth. So when a new truth is discovered, first of all, it's ridiculed, which they're still trying to do, although it's becoming increasingly difficult. The second stage is violent opposition, which we're coming into, as you can see in some of the comments here on this article, which I was reading. And to be honest, they make me feel sick, some of these comments, like the venom and hatred in some of these comments. You know, why would you have such hatred? That's like idiot, witless idiot, you know, I mean, such venom and hatred for someone who, obviously, yes, he was misguided to launch himself in a rocket, but there's no need for such venom and hatred. You know, obviously, yeah. And the thing is, with this guy, Mike Hughes, he was more of a publicity seeker, stroke thrill seeker than he was a flat earther. Most flat earthers, obviously, we believe we live in some sort of container, otherwise we wouldn't have air pressure. So we don't really believe there'd be much point in launching ourselves up in a rocket, because we would come to the container, you know, the roof of whatever's holding our air pressure in. Firmament, you know, some people say. So there would be really little point in making, you know, a giant firework and launching yourself up. You know, I certainly wouldn't do it, and I'm a flat earther. So, but still, there's no need to, you know, witless idiot, you know, such venom and hatred for someone, you know, obviously a bit of a daredevil, a bit misguided. There's just no need for that. So anyway, yeah, so first of all, as I said, this truth passes through 3 stages. So ridicule, then violent opposition, and then eventually it will be accepted as self-evident, which lots of people now are accepting the flat earth as self-evident more and more every day. Certainly I did last year. It took me long enough. I resisted it for so long. But then when I finally looked into it, I could just see it made a lot more sense than the spinning ball model. And the spinning ball heliocentric model is just ridiculous. What they believe, things, you know, like Coriolis effect, and also the atmosphere being welded to the Earth. You know, they're mutually exclusive, those two things. You know, having your cake and eating it. It's just so, yeah, more and more people every day are accepting the flat earth as self-evident, and this is why the mainstream are so scared, because the heliocentric model, it was never a discovery. It was a deception from the beginning to con the public out of millions, billions of pounds, dollars in money for their fake space programs, also to hide the true nature of who we are as humans and who or what created us, to make us think we were a random accident, also to make us feel very small and insignificant, which, as you know, all school bullies do. That is their first tactic. First of all, make your victim feel very small and insignificant, then you can control them. So the heliocentric model was a deception from the beginning. It never was a discovery. And every day, more and more of us are accepting the flat earth model as self-evident truth. and more of us will. And these articles, they just give us more publicity, even though it's negative publicity. All publicity is good publicity. So I would say thank you to Matthew Capucci, and please write some more articles. Thank you very much. Goodbye.